healthiest product is apple, it is more often chosen by kids than chocolate. And this I found really interesting because it did change.
Recording in progress.
Okay, great. And it also helped to choose better and help to address the issue. I'm not sure how it is happening now. There were like during pandemics, a lot of research that were fantastic stopped happening for obvious reasons. So I do hope that we are getting towards new normal and it will be soon revealed. I am controlling the time, but I am aware that it's getting there. So what are the actual COP27 outcomes? Just to give you a brief recap, COP taken place in Egypt. One of the biggest issues were related with loss and damage fund, which the very last day or even prolonged time of COP that they agreed, yes, this is something we want, but it's still unknown what's going to happen with it, who is going to pay for it, and when, and how those things will happen. And then with this 1.5 degree, there is something that is called ratchet process, which they were trying to abolish and make it a commitment, which basically means if the country makes the commitment to keep the temperature rising at bay, and then it's not sufficient or it's not ambitious enough, which has recently, between Glasgow and now, it was very clear that the commitments are not ambitious enough from the countrysides, that this is something that has to be revised and countries need to be more ambitious. So it is here to stay. There was discussion about gas, given the geopolitics right now, and then boosting low emission energy. And I have to say that this COP was reported as the COP that had the biggest number of, how to put it, the lobbyists that are not representing sustainable development or circular economy course of action, I will put it that way. And it normally doesn't happen that often on COPs that you have so many lobbyists. And then there is something that I still feel unsure about, which is related to nuclear energy. I will put it that way. I had very long discussion about it and I was involved in gas-related events. So I will share it as my personal opinion, let's put it that way. You cannot keep us accountable for what I'm gonna say. But basically, if you look long perspective, not what's the best choice to tomorrow have energy. In the long term, when you calculate the actual cost of using nuclear energy and the nuclear waste that we do not have yet the technology to utilize in a way that it doesn't require hundreds of years of maintenance and in case when there is global disaster or like natural disaster, everything is pretty shaky. I would put it that way. So if you take into account all the costs, not the costs of, I don't know, the next couple of years, that is not the cheaper choice. I will put it that way. But for me, it was interesting that it was put up like low emission energy, which nuclear is included, but not renewable energy, which used to be like, since many years, there's this whole discussion about solar energy. Somehow, solar still cannot get there. We have low emission energy at the moment, even though we have a lot of sun everywhere. So this is for me just interesting how those things happen. And then still the discussion about phasing down the coal, but not much to the wording. And then the failure of countries to actually fund climate change related changes. So hence the World Bank reform. Discussion about adaptation that did not really move a lot. What was interesting was that this COP looked a lot at tipping points, connection to health related to global heating, and also first time there was like health pavilion that was huge. That and then there was many food related pavilions, not just agriculture but also food, which is new. At least that was something new that I've seen. And then I would like to hear from you, what do you think should be done to address climate change? Like, the world is heating up. There is a lot of things that we cannot predict. There is funding though, and then there is a lot of resource, which is human resource, that can actually address some of the issues. So if you were in charge and you could make the decision, or you could advise your government or your neighbors, like, what would be that you would like to do? And there is no wrong answer. I will just comment a bit. It is also anonymous to say. So please don't, like, there's no way for me to track who said what. It would be for me very interesting, like, what you have in mind, or what do you think is the solution? Because I think there are two things. If we knew the solution, we already would implement it, but it's not as simple as, like, knowing something doesn't mean everybody's gonna do it. It still takes some time to commit or make a difference. But in general, I think nowadays we all need to put our heads together. And also during events like this, but also universities have this enormous power and enormous resource of thousands of students to actually make a difference. And I really believe that it will be coming from the young people, the new approach, because the way the technology allows nowadays to connect, discuss, innovate, it was not possible a couple of years ago yet. So this is something that that is interesting. So I can see planting trees, forest-related things, and then I'm not sure why it's locked. And then the waste water. Okay, so there is a couple of notions here that you are putting up on the screen. That is also related with, when you look at the forest and deforestation, this year I learned with horror that Amazon forest, that since I was a child, I believe that this is health or like lungs of the earth. And this is like the reservoir that will never change. But this year Amazon forest started to emit CO2, which was like, it resulted in Brazil coming on board or getting reactivated on climate change related discussions, but it was something that shocked me because it kind of shake my worldview about what things are obvious. But of course, forests have enormous role. First of all, they help with natural disasters, especially with flooding. They also help to regulate temperature. If you cut out the forest, like the reforestation helps to lower the temperature in the countries. But when you think about it, given the fact and the scale of urbanization nowadays, it is also something that would not be that easy if we have a population moving to cities. So when you look at some European countries, I'm not sure if there is the same trend happening in Asia, because I think the population might not be always so congested yet, but it depends on the country. Like if you look at Singapore, there is no rural areas. It's like we all live in the city. But there are programs to encourage so-called digital nomads to move out of the cities and come back to the rural areas, to live in the countryside, also to rejuvenate those areas instead of them being abandoned. So this is something that is definitely important. Then, of course, there is water usage, and then there is energy usage, and then there is need versus grid concept. And in general, the question always remains, what is enough? Like, do you need to have 3 cars, or is it okay to have bicycle? Okay, I'm not going to be that dramatic. I actually do not have driving license, which shocks people, because I consciously a long time ago decided that I'm not going to drive a car, which doesn't mean I'm against the cars. I just thought there is a lot of cars. I don't need to be another car driver. I can do other things. But then it is shocking people, or the fact that you make your own choices that are not so popular. And I think it might be the future. I can see 4Rs, which is also related with reduce, reuse, recycle. But I like with this focus on reduce and circular economy per se. And circular economy is now discovery of the world. But we used to live like this, like the humans used to be recycling. In poorer countries, the zero waste is actual practice as much as possible because there's not that many resources that can be used. Then there's, of course, advocacy and doing campaigns, and also what our diet, what are our diets entail, and what are we eating. There's one thing I wanted to mention that I'm not sure if you've seen in the media. So around COP discussions, there was this huge criticism towards Shell or BP that those companies, since the war started, and while having very nice publicity departments, put themselves as sustainable, even though they recorded the biggest profits since they were created, benefiting from what's going on right now. So this is something that that makes you question. But then, having said that, this is what we can tell other people to do. But then the issue is, what can I do in the sense on the personal level, having in mind this big umbrella of sustainable development goals, climate change, all the challenges, this whole discussion, and I am quite aware of it, that one person cannot change it all. Is this something that while you are listening to any of this, or while maybe you already are doing and you would like to share with your colleagues, that you could share with others? What is your commitment on the personal level? I don't see any commitment. I'm not sure why. Okay, thank you. Thank you, computer. I do not know what is 3S. This is interesting. I will Google this later. Eating the rich. In general, I think, I mean, this is something that my colleagues say, because after pandemic, I didn't improve on my diet and exercise, I will put it that way, while spending the lockdown in Singapore. And then I asked my colleague, oh my God, how do you deal with these challenges? How do you stay fit and healthy when it's not so easy? And then she was like, for her, it was very obvious. A little bit every day can go a long way. And I think she made it as her life motto. And then I don't want to believe, like, I'm not believing that, oh, if we all today decide that we will be a better person, the world will change tomorrow. But if at all, you sometimes from time to time reflect on your actions on the individual level, then you can influence others. And then once you are at the position that you can actually make the decision, and maybe some of you already are, because the young generation in the household normally is telling parents what to do, not the other way around, you can really make the ripple effect and make the difference. So this would be something that I would like you all to think about and reflect upon. And then later on, my colleague will continue more on innovation and SDGs and share his experiences. But I think this is something we can all keep in mind. And also when we are deciding who is going to represent us, or like who is getting our support, or we are voting with our choices or asking questions, I can share with you, like, I am very annoying. So when I go to the hotel, when we organize event, and sometimes it's like, sometimes we do not choose the most sustainable hotel because of the pricing, because usually it's the more pricey hotels that do sustainable choices because it's the part of their branding and maybe the philosophy of the manager. But when I see, for example, like our last event was in Korea and we had plastic bottles in the hotel, when you can drink water from the tap, I had a long discussion with the hotel manager and then they replaced the plastic water with the carafe. But then I stayed one day longer and the last day the plastic bottle was back. But I can imagine if you have so many annoying customers that you are asking you about it, maybe you can also make the difference in your personal space. And then I am obliged to encourage all of you to subscribe to ASEF newsletter, and thank you for sharing your personal choices. So this is something that we are doing, and if you want to join us, that is the promotional site. And I will share the presentation with the organizer, so you can also go to asef.org and subscribe. And I would like to hear if you have any questions or thoughts for that matter that you would like to share.
Thank you so much for your wonderful sharing. Like your sharing is really innovating and inspiring us, because you sound like emoji really again that really late to student here, and like I can like currently in and out we also like see the clear effect of climate change like in the winter, currently in the winter, but it's really hot temperature right now and we can't stand up that. So that's really the clear effect from what climate change. And due to the time limits, like we receive a lot of questions from students for your sharing. But
yes, I can see on the chat, so I'm not sure if I should respond.
So I will pick up one randomly from you those, and
can I
then the other question,
because the I understood the time limit and one question.
So I will pick up one.
I will just respond to the one, how can we work with ASEF to make our world the better place? Because like to comment on everything, it will be a little bit challenging. So ASEF has multiple departments working on most of the issues. We have integrated across the organization the notion of sustainable development and sustainability. So while my project specifically looks nowadays at small and medium enterprises and how you can create enabling conditions for those. So if you are going or planning to be involved and be your business owner, you are more than welcome to join the dialogue. We have also education department that is organizing just recently the events such as Global Leaders, which was also taking place today in ASEF. But also they are organizing and launching huge campaign, which is like online learning on MOOC that will be looking into sustainability. And then they do spin-off event locally, which we also started to do once the world reopened. When you go to the country and then you do not fly participants, but maybe one or two experts, and then you look locally with the local partner what can be done, and based on that organize workshops. But basically what ASEF does is to providing research input and platform for dialogue and facilitate dialogue with different stakeholders.
Yeah, so I will pick up one related question and then the other question, because we have a limitation of time. So the other question that you have, I hope you can answer in the chat box. Is this okay?
Okay.
Okay, so but I see the most related question is that how can we, the student here and now, work with the Asian and Europe Foundation to make our world be a better place?
So that was the question that I actually just answered, but I can think of something else to just say. But in general, please follow us and then see what we are doing. And then if you have ideas on what projects could be done, and also when I was asking the questions to the audience, what is in young minds, what is the importance, what are the priorities? This is something that we took into account while we are sharing or shaping our programs. So this is how you engage with us, by giving your input, but also applying to participate in the things we are doing or responding to our surveys. And our education department has also the project that is working directly with universities. So this is something that is open, and then we are welcome the active participation. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. We will follow on what the social media you have shared with us, like to keep update with the new information or the latest news from the Asia Europe Foundation also. So once again, thank you so much for your detailed answer and sharing, Ms. Grazina Blusok. So moving on to the next speaker, the expert sharing section today. So my pleasure to introduce Mr. Mark Anderson, representative of the British Council Silicon Vietnam Project, Director of Research and Innovation Glasgow, Caledonian University in UK. He helped to embed social innovation as a core part of university mission, as well as overseeing the university's research and innovation portfolio. He leads several international cooperation projects worldwide in Latin America, Southeast Asia, Africa, and Central Asia. So one of his main focus is setting up community-facing social innovation support units, especially dedicated to helping university engage with their local stakeholders in order to confront society challenges. He established 16 of the units in Chile, Colombia, Brazil, Panama, Myanmar, Cambodia, Malaysia, and Thailand. He also coordinates with SIKE, social innovation through knowledge exchange, established in similar units in UK, Spain, Portugal, Croatia, and Germany. All the projects have focused on research, innovation, internationalization, disability support, female entrepreneurship, and etc. In a range of countries, including Indonesia, Iran, India, Sri Lanka, Kenya, Tanzania, and other more. So as a director of Europe office over the last 10 years, he has guided the university through complexity of European funding, helping chair and participate in several national panels focused on ramification of process. He also a non-executive director of Edinburgh Social Innovation Incubators and the Melting Pot. He sits on the Social Innovation Trend Global Council. So not enough word to talk about your accomplishment and career. And now, please welcome Mr. Anderson with a topic embedding SDGs and social innovation as a part of research and innovation strategy. Mr. Mark, may I turn the screen to you now?
Thank you, Tan. And oh dear, that was a very long introduction. I do apologize for sending you such a lengthy CV. I do apologize for that. Hi, everybody. I just have to say that I'm delighted to be here, but I'd be even more delighted if I was sitting with you in Vietnam or any of the other countries that have attended. I miss Asia very much. COVID has curtailed a lot of my traveling, but hopefully I'll be getting out there next year. I'm just going to share my screen, and I must say it's going to be difficult to follow Graznia's fantastic presentation with a lot of audience participation as well, but I'll give it a go. So this sounds like a very, very dry title, embedding SDGs and social innovation as part of a research and innovation strategy, quite a long title. I'm going to kind of break it down a little bit. And I think the first thing I want to kind of consider a little bit is, obviously, we're all here, the UN Sustainable Development Goals. It's very interesting that everybody is talking about them now. And I wonder if it's worth just taking a little bit of time to think of what these mean. I've heard somebody actually mistakenly say the unsustainable development goals instead of the UN Sustainable Development Goals, which would be a real problem. But sustainable development goals, what does it mean? I mean, it really means that we need to change some of our habits. Now, when you think of what is the world looking like? Well, I think it looks a bit like this. A big fat man in a very, very expensive restaurant eating and eating and eating until eventually he's going to explode. And I think that this is something that we really have to start thinking, not about growing all the time. If you notice, all governments, they all talk about growth. We need to grow more. We need to get bigger and richer. We need to have unsustainable wealth. We just keep getting more and more money. This is a real issue. We have cities that are growing unsustainably. We can't fit the amount of people. We don't have the infrastructures to support them. So I think, you know, we've talked about the problems. I think we're very, very familiar with the problems. So really, when we're talking about the Sustainable Development Goals, let's think of it. What is it about development? When we think of a development of a child, we're thinking of how a child matures. Yeah. I'm a very small person, so it's not necessarily that we get bigger all the time, but the important thing is that we become happy and we become responsible and we become caring and loving and we are loved. That's what all human beings want at the end of the day. So we think of ways to develop, and then this sustainability. You know, if you look at a forest, you can have thousands of trees, but they've learned to live in a sustainable way. And this is something that's really crucial for our future. And I think Resnick has made it very clear. This is something that's now, we are in a climate emergency. I think obviously this is an issue that's facing young people, but actually it's facing old people as well. And I think that people often forget that the people today who are the old people that are people who are blamed for helping to destroy the planet. Back in the 60s, they were the hippies who were saying we should live in peace and harmony. Be very careful, young people, because young people become old people. Make sure when you become old, you still continue to be as excited and as well-intentioned as you are now. It's very, very important. So when we talk about sustainability, it's an interesting thing, because if you look at the derivation of the word sustain means, it comes from the Latin tenere, to hold, and sus, underneath. And you see this picture here of Atlas holding up the world. And it's an interesting thing, this idea of we hold the world. And we talk about, oh, we must take care of the planet, because otherwise we are destroying the planet. I'm sorry, guys, we're not destroying the planet. The planet will survive. It's survived 5 extinctions already. It's humanity that won't survive. And I think this is very important. When we're talking about sustainable development, we're talking about 3 areas. We're talking about the economy, we're talking about the society, and we're talking about the environment. And really, it's those 3 things and how they work together in order to keep our world, humanity's world, continuing. So I think we all agree in the goals. I think this was the amazing thing. You know, all governments across the world, they agreed that these were the things they should aspire to. But I think we have a real problem, which is how we do it. How do we achieve these goals? And really, the subject I want to talk about today is, I think, the most important thing for us to do is to innovate. Now, innovate is a very difficult word, because a lot of people have slightly different meanings. But if I show you this, I think this is a picture, and unfortunately, they're all men, and this is one of the problems of the world we have today. But I've got a little quiz for you. You can use the chat to answer the questions. I haven't got the technology that Resnick has, but use the chat to answer this. Here you have 5 social innovators, 5 innovators, and here at the bottom you have 5 innovations. Can you match 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 with A, B, C, D, E at the bottom? Can you identify these people? Here's a quick quiz for you guys. You've only got 2 minutes, because otherwise I'll run out of time. Let's see if the chat, if anybody's daring to give some answers. Who do you think these people are? What are their innovations? Everybody seems to recognize Steve Jobs. They recognize 1 to C. Very good. That's a good start. What about the others? They become more difficult. I can give you a couple of minutes. Somebody says 4 to 5. So we've got some interesting. So, right. Okay. I'm going to give you the answers now. So everybody, of course, knows the one innovation that everybody recognizes, Steve Jobs and the Mac computer, and everybody recognizes it, changed our lives. I wonder how many people recognize this gentleman. He's actually from Scotland. Alexander Fleming, and his innovation was, of course, penicillin. Alexander Fleming discovered penicillin and discovered the health aspects. Now, this is a guy you might not recognize, but all of you have used his innovations, I'm sure. Anybody who's done anything will have seen his inventions. His name is James Dyson, and he has innovated with hand dryers, with vacuum cleaners. If anybody uses a vacuum cleaner, it's probably a Dyson vacuum cleaner, and he's a British innovator who's created some very interesting things. Now, all these three people are very interesting. They've created either scientifically or technologically a thing which has changed our way of living. But what about this gentleman? Who knows who this gentleman is? I think some people. Did anybody identify this gentleman, the fourth gentleman? I can't see any names. Somebody put Mr. Dyson, so that was very good. Yes, somebody put Bangladeshi, but this is Muhammad Yunus. Now, Muhammad Yunus, and the photo is these ladies here. Muhammad Yunus basically developed a system for microcredit and won the Nobel Prize. So I think a few of you may have recognized that guy. Probably nobody recognizes this guy. This guy is a guy from Scotland, and he's called Mal Young. And basically, he developed the second photo, and the second photo is a football match, but it's a football match not between professional footballers. This is a football match for homeless people. And he developed a fantastic project called the Homeless World Cup, which is still going on all across the world. Homeless groups are coming together, forming football teams and going to the Homeless World Cup. What a fantastic way of making people who are homeless feel that they belong. Now, here's the interesting thing. These are all innovators, but the first three are scientific or technological innovators. But what I want to talk about today are the last two. They are social innovators. In other words, they've done something to change society. And social innovation is something we talk about more and more, and people are realizing that this could be one of the ways that we can tackle some of the problems of the world today and achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. So I'm going to give you some 3 definitions of social innovation, which you can look up the slides. I'm not going to go through them. We don't want to hear definitions, but a few things I want to point out. Social innovations are new solutions, and they create organizational, conceptual process change to improve the welfare and well-being of individuals and communities. This is the absolute definition of social innovation. They help our individuals and our communities. And in the second division, they support social progress. But this is an important thing. This is from Stanford, the Stanford Business School. This is a really interesting point about social innovation. Social innovation is not the prerogative or the privilege of any organizational form or legal structure. In other words, social innovation belongs to you all. We all can be social innovators. And the world of social innovation is made up of people, young people like yourselves, who look at the world around and respond. Okay, so they're really about solutions that society generates, not by governments usually, but by people on the ground. So here we have a picture paints 1,000 words. This is a kind of an illustration of social innovation, how social innovation works. You see all the different problems and issues around the world, and people have an idea to resolve these issues. Now, I'm going to give you a quick quiz again. Okay, so I've defined social innovation. I'll give you a minute, see how many people can write examples of social innovations in the chat. What social innovations can you think of? Think of some more examples of social innovation. What other social innovations are there? Anybody would like to put some examples of social innovation? Nobody can think of an example of a social innovation. Volunteerism, says James. Well, that's a good one. Recycling, absolutely. Any more? Activism. It could be many different types of activism. Any others? Yes, usually people think of similar things. I'm just going to show you a slide with an examples of loads of different types of social innovations. So social innovation, the World Wide Web is a social innovation. Wikipedia is a social innovation. We have carbon trading, microcredit. We mentioned Mohammed Yunus. Community wind farms. Participatory budgets whereby people decide what we should spend the money on. Fair trade, zero carbon housing, eco-cities, slow food. There are hundreds and hundreds of different social innovations, and we can keep going on and on thinking of more and more. Basically, we thought we use this very often, this spiral, to illustrate what happens with social innovation. So what happens is there's a problem. There's a challenge, and people go, oh my God, there's too much poverty, or there's too much homelessness, or something. They see something and they go, I've got an idea to resolve this. And then they start to pilot and they experiment and create prototypes, a new way of doing something. But then, and this is very important, they find a way of sustaining it, because it has to be sustainable. When we talk about sustainable in this sense, what we mean is that we're paying, there's a way that it can actually survive. It may be through investment, it may be through altruism, it may be that it doesn't cost any money, but somehow it needs to sustain itself. And then as we go on, it gets bigger, it becomes more and more powerful. And then what happens is it leads to systemic change. And that's the ultimate for social innovations, that we get to a change in society. So it's quite interesting because people talk about social innovation being a new thing. I'll just give you a little history lesson. This is Robert Owen, who was a Scottish industrialist. He owned a factory. Now, anybody who knows the history of the UK, back in the 18th century, lots of people suddenly were working in factories. And if you look at the black and white picture, the conditions in these factories were terrible. Now, Robert Owen owned a factory in a place called New Lanark. And this is New Lanark today. And this is what it was in the 18th century. If you go to Scotland, you can visit it. Now, what was amazing about Robert Owen was he realized that his factories, it wasn't good enough just to shove people in the factories. So he created schools. He created special currencies for the people who worked there. He taught both women and children, but girls and boys. He didn't punish people who didn't work properly. He found systems that they could be rewarded. And so he created a kind of mini utopia. And so a lot of people would say he's one of the great pioneers of social innovation. This is a man who's done a lot of research. And one of the things he says, I'm not going to go into it, but he talks about nowadays with artificial intelligence, with new technologies, we really have to be careful, and we have to use our entrepreneurship, our innovation to make sure that these technologies are serving, they're enhancing humanity, they're reinvigorating democracy, but they're not replacing humanity. And this is really important. Now we're at a very, very crucial crossroads that we have to think of our humanity. Like I said, the world will survive, humanity won't. And now we see these terrible things, the crises in democracy, the COVID pandemic, the war in Ukraine, and of course, climate emergency. So we need to start understanding what are the processes to transform our society to do good. We can spend our time blaming big business and governments, but we have to be involved in creating systemic change. Now, what that change looks like depends. You know, context is everything. You never know, different situations mean different things. Within social innovation, we have a load of ecosystems. I work in a university, and you have social innovators, you have policymakers, but around you have, how do people access finance? How do they find spaces to co-create? How can they find programs to help them scale up their social innovations? We need to create ecosystems, helping internationalize. And this is a great example of how we're internationalizing our work. How do we promote what we're doing in social innovation? And how can we mentor people who are starting in their social innovations? In the university, in the context of a university, innovation is a process where we take the knowledge that we have in research and learning, and we evolve that knowledge so that it has impact on the world. And this is very, very important. That is the definition of innovation. We start with an idea, it has no value. It's internal. If I have an idea in my head, it might be a fantastic idea, but it's worthless until I start creating something. With the creation, I exploit my knowledge, I externalize it, and then that brings it value. And social innovation is very simply doing that, but thinking not just about the money, but about the social value that you can create. So when we're in universities, we think of the research into social innovation, but I think it's important that universities can be intermediaries between social innovators and policymakers. We can provide evaluations to assess social innovation and an understanding of how you can accelerate and upscale. And we can provide technical expertise, our engineers and our medical researchers. But also universities are great spaces. We have all this knowledge, but we have training, capacity building, mentoring experience. We have specialized equipment. We have provision of spaces for networking. We have hot desking. We have selection and evaluation expertise, and we have lobbying facilities. So Glasgow Caledonian University has realized this great potential. So our vision for 2030 is that we will be recognized as one of the leaders in social innovation, how we can do this, how we can help our communities. And the Sustainable Development Goals, for my job as Director of Research and Innovation, every single piece of research that we do has to contribute to the UN SDGs. So this is our strategy in a nutshell. So we want to be world leading. We want to deliver transformative education, impactful research, purposeful partnerships as a globally connected university. And everything is underpinned by our mission in the university for the common good, to help people both locally and around the world. And all our research, as I said, is affiliated with at least one SDG. So all our research covers all 17 SDGs altogether. And we've won awards for the Times Higher impact rankings, which is very important. If students may not know this, but the rankings are very important to universities, and these are new rankings, which is about the impact you have on the world around you, how you're responding to the SDGs. So some examples of the kind of things we do, and I know that a lot of partners from universities who've been involved in our projects are here today, so it's fantastic to see so many old partners. So one of the things that we've been doing for some years now developing projects that are specialized in creating social innovation initiatives within universities. So we've designed a kind of template for a space that will help, a unit that will help develop social innovation. So we created these spaces. We created 2 spaces in each of these countries in Latin America, in Brazil, Panama, Colombia, and Chile. And we also created units in Myanmar, Thailand, Cambodia, and Malaysia. We created specialized units in 8 universities in Southeast Asia. I saw that, I know that Sunway University, for example, is definitely here from Malaysia. So great to see you guys. And we basically developed these projects to help students and staff and social innovators from the outside to come together and to develop new programs. And we did the same in Europe through a project called Social Innovation Through Knowledge Exchange with Portugal, Spain, Croatia, and Germany. And I just want to end just to give you some examples. And these are students like you who've got together through the units that we established and have developed some fantastic initiatives that have really helped go in their own modest way to achieve some of the sustainable development goals. So this project was called the Guidelight from Thailand, which helps blind people, especially blind students to achieve higher education, and by providing toolkits and learning materials and having study and workshops. This is another project. This is from Cambodia. This was a project with students where they helped to empower rural women to develop silk weaving and then to create income generation through traditional silk weaving, and some fantastic products they make. This was in Malaysia. This was students from UITM Mara, and they created the Good Tavern Social Market, which was a marketplace so that social enterprises and social innovators could develop their ideas and then sell their ideas at a marketplace. Lookalike, this was a social enterprise developed in Thailand, which was used to promote community-based tourism in Thailand. And it had a mission to preserve local culture and to provide sustainable economic opportunities and livelihoods. In G-Lab at Thammasat University in Thailand, they brought social innovators and social enterprises together within an academic unit within the university. And in Myanmar, and of course, sadly, in Myanmar, with the coup, I don't know where the universities are with these projects, but now that they developed a project called Recycle Myanmar to raise funds through recyclables and creating final products to care for children who had dropped out of school. And this is another one from Malaysia, the Agricultural Transformation Project involving indigenous people. So they used modern and sustainable technology for agriculture to change the landscapes around them. And finally, the Human Library in Malaysia, which gave opportunity for different people from marginalized groups to come in and gain a better understanding of other people. So all these projects, and I've left we share the slides, you can follow these links. These the books that we created from these projects, and you can download the books. And these show more of the projects. And these were all students who developed projects. So I really want to hopefully inspire you guys. You are the creative part of the world. I'm not creative. You guys, it's down to you to look at solutions, use this social innovation approach to create solutions and develop. We've got a project now with students in 6 different countries, and they've been working through COVID remotely, and they've developed a whole series of fantastic social and innovation companies to help things from the environment to disabilities and homelessness. Finally, just a little kind of plug for a platform we have. We have a platform now from people from 45 different countries, 550 different members Please do join. This is a platform for social innovators so they can share ideas and develop projects themselves. So I do invite you to make use of that space. And
Thank you so much for your wonderful sharing. Like we can see how innovation affect on sustainability and how we can apply what technology innovation, especially technology into sustainability also. So we also receive question from students about the social media innovation. Like social media is a positive or negative development, and what is a more effective solution to keep social media develop, follow the social sustainability, because they worry like people, because people seem to live more on the virtual life, not on the real life. So that is the first question.
it's a very interesting question, because I'm getting very old now, and so I really don't understand the world around me, and social media and things is beyond me. But I think it's a very interesting question. A lot of people associate words, so they see social media and social innovation and think they're to mean the same thing. It's a very different thing. A couple of things. One is social innovation. By definition, it's to help the world around. Now, this may be through social media. One of the problems with technologies, and this is where social innovation is so important. Technologies throughout history have then been used sometimes for good, but sometimes for bad. If you look at the factories, when I told you about Robert Owen, you know, the factories were producing new material, but they also did a lot of harm in terms of pollution, in terms of human suffering. And the social media is exactly the same. Social media can be fantastic, but it can also be very, very negative. And the reason why social innovation is so important is because it's a way that when we are developing as societies, we're always thinking. And there are two key rules that I say for social innovation. One is that you should always involve the beneficiaries as the co-creators. So if you're trying to think of a solution to something, make sure that people are going to use it are working with you. And then finally, the second thing is make sure you measure the impact. What is the effect of what you're doing, both good and bad? You know, I have a friend who's a researcher, and he says, well, social innovation, we have to be careful of does it have a moral compass? You know, otherwise you could say, oh, Adolf Hitler was a great social innovator. No, because one part of the definition of social innovation is has a moral compass.
Yeah, I see. It's really obviously. And so, okay, so finally, thank you so much for your sharing on again. So for the other question, I will direct to you later, and I hope to get your response forward. And I believe all of my friends here, ASEAN students, did learn so much from your wonderful sharing from two of you guys, because we can like from Grazina, we can question ourselves like how responsibility we are to live on Earth for sustainability, and get us know more clear in direction like how defining which is the best solution should be resolved. And currently, and from March, we can see like why innovation affect on sustainability and how we can apply it effectively for our sustainability. Also, it's really engaging in really relating to us. What an awesome evening, dear our speakers. On behalf of the Pacific to ASEAN, I would like to express our appreciation and grateful for taking your time with us. And we look forward to making speaker in the near future. So
thank you very much. It was my great pleasure.
yeah. So dear speaker, delegate, and friend, after this part, we have the participant activities. So the expert and other delegate, you can leave the meeting. And once again, thank you so much. And we wish you the good health and always happy and successful in your career.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks very much. Hope to see you very soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you. See you soon. So everyone, a previous time, P2A already prepared a 34 group for you. So for the question, so feel free to discuss the topic you are assigned. Please note that after you finish the breakout room, you can leave the meeting. No need to be back in the main room. So we will let you know whenever breakout room are about to stop in 5 minutes in advance. So have a right time to with your team.
Dear students, we are open the breakout room already. You can assign by yourself, and if you cannot join the session, you just write out in the chat box so that we can assign you in the right room. I find that some students haven't renamed yourself, so that it's difficult for us to assign you in the right room. So when you please rename, and we will let you in the breakout room.